by any chance? Okay. So there are some technology issues which keep hitting us. So as part of the technology, we know that it's part and parcel of our life. So that's okay. Test-driven development. We hear this a lot, right? So it always suggests to do development. So whenever we talk of test-driven development, it always says that do development where the driving force is a test. But during my initial days when I heard this term, and I was always wondering that, from our background when we study HDLC, we study all the other pieces wherein it's always develop, design, requirement, design, develop, and then test. So always come from that background, and all of a sudden you hear test-driven development, and you try to figure out that, okay, what is the difference, and what's the key difference? I always used to wonder, why do I need test-driven development and do not develop first and then test? So I used to think when both test and development are integral pieces, what difference does it make in which activity precedes another? Ideally, the result should be the same, that is product quality in the stipulated time frame, irrespective of development or test activity precedence. That's the way I used to think. That I used to try to answer myself that, okay, how does it matter what I'm doing first? So it's basic nature, right, of engineering. I would say that you keep asking questions, you keep enhancing, you keep trying to justify things what you're doing, and that's a very good approach. But after some time did I realize that the importance of writing a test first and then develop code for it. So it took me a while to understand it. Now over here, let's look at both the processes closely and try to figure out the difference. Let's take development first. We read requirements. So when in the normal approach wherein we do development first and then test, so we take that piece. So what do? We read requirements, understand it, then start writing code to achieve those functionalities as stated by the requirements. So while writing those functionalities, what do? We hit limitations, right? The limitations and problems. So it's a basic nature, I would say, of writing code, that you hit those problems, those limitations, and you try to find out solutions, workarounds for it. So when we try to find out solutions, workarounds, then what do? We then unit test it, our written code as per the design logic, and promote it for review or acceptance test. So this is what we do. We understand requirements, write the code as understood by us. If any limitation or problem is hit, we try to solve it, put in a workaround, put in something, then unit test it and promote it further for review, acceptance, and others. Now let's understand the approach where we write the test first. So very simple. Here we read and understand requirements. So first step is almost the same. Then it says write test cases based on the functionalities to be developed. So we write the test cases first, right? We understand it and we write the test cases in that form that, okay, what is it that the user wants? So this test case should fail, this test case should pass in the first place. So this is what user is wanting, this functionality is to be developed that way. Post writing of test case, develop code. Then we write code for each test case or each functionality to be developed, and then test the code against the already written test cases. So then we test it. The second approach ensures that while development, any technical complexity or our thought process did not change or alter in product being developed from what is expected by the customer. You see that this was the minute difference that it helps us to understand that in the second approach, when we already had the test cases written, right, we all converged on a few test cases, okay, that these are the set of test cases which we had to pass, right? So even if we hit a limitation, we have no choice, right? We know that this is what customer wants. We cannot change it. So while writing the code first, we hit a limitation and we changed our whole logic, maybe or maybe put in a workaround over there, and we tried implementing it in a different way. So here what happens is Though I'm not saying that it would not be changed later. Once it's realized, it would obviously trigger a change. So once a test, so if two separate teams, I would say, are working wherein a tester understands the functionality and then he says, no, this is not to be implemented in this manner. There may be a bit of discussions around it that, okay, this is the correct functionality. Maybe the analyst, the requirements analyst, or the stakeholders might be brought into the picture, but it's only that it creates cycles. Right, it was from development, it was passed on to test, and test pointed out, and then it was recorrected, and it was sent back again for development. Look at the cycle that we created. Instead, in the test-driven approach, we just cut it off from the base. We said, okay, these are the tests which we need to pass. These are the tests. This is the code for it. If anything, again, we know that we hit a limitation. A limitation can occur still. Not saying that it does not occur. If it occurs, then we know what to do. That, okay, we are hitting a limitation. We know, okay, this is something that can be done or cannot be done or can be done with some workarounds. We take it up right to the requirements or to the stakeholders. But it does not create that ripple effect from test back to development and then to requirements. It creates it right, so we understand it right at the very beginning. Here I do not say which process is better, but just want to say just want to point out the benefit of test-driven development. A still more advanced approach that we practice is use the acceptance test cases. So written by the team, I would say, before development. So this is a more advanced approach wherein we practice writing the acceptance test cases all together. So the team reads and understands the requirements. So here, when I say the team is a collective team of developers and testers, right? I'm not segregating the team based on their job responsibilities. It's one team. The team reads and understands the requirement. The team writes the scenarios or functionalities to be developed. This is followed by elaborating the scenarios written in the form of test cases, which has detailed steps of achieving the same. Now these test cases are picked up for development here as an additional precaution, and to remove any user-biased understanding, the development of test cases is done by a team member who had not written the test case. So you see that, see the difference over here, that we try to create a much more refined approach of test-driven development that we pick up the unit test. So a very refined approach, I would say, initially, wherein we started with writing the requirements. Then we picked up things for development, and then we tested it. A refined approach came in wherein we said, okay, let's write the test cases first, the unit test cases, where the developer used to write it. But again, when the developer writes it and he develops the same code, right, it seems as if he's writing the same logic, because he would implement it in a similar manner as he would write the test cases. So again, when it goes back to the tester, you get a difference of opinion. You land up into discussions. So we made it more refined. Why not put in the acceptance test or the tests right at the beginning? So once we have the requirements, let's in the initial phase, let's start collectively as a team to write the test cases. So not that we go in all in the bulk that, okay, let's write all the test cases, I would say, but we do it in iteration-wise or incrementally. So we have a set of test cases. If it's ready, then the developers pick up their job of development, so that iterative cycle continues further. But as a team, now what happens is, now again, when these test cases are written, this is given to, so if team member A has written the test case, team member B only develops it. So the benefit derived out here is that somebody who has written is not developing it. So you get a difference of opinion. Okay, so when he reads it, okay, this is the requirement. He reads the requirements, then he understands the test cases written on it, and then if he has any opinion on it, he can change it or modify it accordingly, or discuss it accordingly, and then proceed with development. So we get 3 perspectives out here, right, just before development, and that's great. And similarly, we remove the standalone review time even. So if I were to write acceptance test case and then I'll get it reviewed by someone, and then once it's reviewed, then I'll go ahead and test it. Here, see, my review cycle is even complete. I wrote a test case and somebody else picked it up for development. Together with getting his third opinion, I get it reviewed for free. Right? So this is the benefit we try achieving out of it. As said, this removes any single user, developer, tester, user biasness approach and takes care of the review of test cases too. So we covered test-driven development, but one of the major constraints in implementing this was the background system to implement. So we covered how do we do test-driven development, but when I learned that also, but still I could see, and I personally even felt that while implementing test-driven development, we were not very comfortable. Today, when I see systems are not very comfortable at certain places, whereas where we have these capabilities provided. But test-driven development takes the back seat because of the system not supporting it. So the basic going back in, not in the prehistoric era, but let's begin when we had identified the need of drafting requirements before development. So we are just going back in history, so trying to figure out, okay, what was the system like and what were the requirements like. So previously, long back, I would say that before systems or requirements had this kind of a thing, so you had requirements and somebody would come up to someone and say, okay, I want this thing, and the other person would start coding in something, right? So that kind of a phase. Then we understood that, okay, the consumer, the customer would always complain, okay, I didn't say this, because there was no legal bonding, there was no requirement written, there was no understanding, right? So requirements became an important piece. Here requirements were drafted in the form of documents, text, image editors, so using multiple other things, requirements began drafting. This was reviewed, and the review comments were captured in mails, text editors, etc. So similar was the fate of test cases and development code. The review comments were similarly stored in a disconnected place and moreover scattered everywhere. Scattered everywhere means that comments residing in chats, mails, separate files. So this was the way, means we understood the nature that, okay, we need to capture requirements, we need to capture test cases, we do all this, right? But we never went into this thing wherein means we got this thing, so we never went into the thing that, okay, how is this to be captured? We just knew that it was to be captured, right? So we started capturing the requirements, we started capturing the comments, we started capturing the test cases, their comments, but they were captured, but where? In mails, in chats, in documents. So a great leap, I would say, but still not the best place that we could have been. So this generated requirements of systems. So there was a need, there was an urge of a system wherein a system was required, a system of requirements for managing the activities separately, but completely. Thus came up requirement management system, test management system,
Mr. Siddharth, I am sorry to interrupt, but we are still seeing the very first slide, test-driven development cycle. I think they're freeze. They're not moving forward.
Just a minute.
Now we can see plan a sprint.
Okay, all right, great. So initially stayed on the screen sometime?
I think it got freezed on that previous one. Now we are seeing a plan a sprint slide. All right.
Okay. Okay, perfect. I suppose you see plan a sprint slide. All right.
Yes, we are seeing that slide.
This. Okay, great. So this generated a requirement of system for managing the activities separately but completely. Thus came the requirement management system, test management, change management system. Here each system solved a lot of previous issues and all led to better management of that activity. So you see that when we had these systems, it led us to, it solved us a lot of issues and helped to better management. Now how do we do that? Now the mails, comments were not lost. They remained in the system. It was always available for everybody's reference. Because we had those captured, the documents were captured, the requirements were captured, the test cases were captured, the changes were captured, everything was captured, but the review comments were in a different position altogether. The replies of the review comments were in a different position. Any changes were in a different place. So now everything was on one system. So this was a benefit, a great leap again, I would say. But here we realized again that there was scope of further improvement as these standalone systems for separate activities helped us, but did not give an entire picture of the complete system. Nor did it give the impact of change in one system and the effects it would have on another system. So this again was a great thing that I could not figure out that, okay, how would one thing change and the other is unimpacted. So in the previous I knew that, okay, this requirement has this many comments, this test case has this many comments, this test case is passed, this test case is failed. But I could not link a requirement to a test case to a, so this change, this was missing. So a standalone system supports a lot, but this was missing. So to help this, in this we have the current modern software development tool wherein we work in an integrated environment where all data is linked to each other. Here all the disciplines of development, be it requirement, testing and development, are all integrated. It gives us a collective dashboard where we view the state of various functionalities being developed across various disciplines. Here when a requirement is changed, we can identify the test cases and the code pieces impacted. It gives us a picture of the code written but not tested or not mapping to a requirement. It can link a defect right up till requirements. Review comments all are stored on the same repository. User does not need to log into separate systems for working with it. From one login, he can work across disciplines. Let's see how we move across sprints with our test-driven development in our sprint planning. We have the sprint over here right now. In our sprint planning, we propose requirements to be picked up for that sprint. They plan the development and test item, and finally assess the coverage of development and test plan. But theoretically, we want to follow TDD every sprint properly, but somehow it does not happen many a times. The principal constraint here are systems working standalone. We do not have a complete holistic picture, and somehow we get lost in matching pictures to plan and track. How nice it would be if all the information is formed at one place. Let's see our modern tools and how they make our life easier by giving user a complete picture without any additional effort. On the screen, I suppose it's loading up, but